All right, today we're going to talk about a plant that gets a pretty bad rap, skunk cabbage. But seriously, try to forget the name for a second, because what we're really looking at here is, well, it's a biological marvel, a total cornerstone of its ecosystem, and a living link to an ancient past.
So check this out. What you're looking at is one of the very, very first signs of spring. This is a plant that's so powerful, it literally makes its own heat. Enough heat to melt its way right through frozen ground and snow. It's an incredible ability called thermogenesis, and it's what makes skunk cabbage a true pioneer of the season. But a plant this powerful? Yeah, we need to get something important out of the way right up front.
Okay, just a quick but really crucial note here. Everything in this explainer is for educational purposes only. This is absolutely not medical advice. When you're dealing with any wild plant, you should never, ever handle or consume it without talking to a professional first. Seriously, safety and respect for nature have to be the top priority. Always.
All right, with that out of the way, let's get into the science of this thing. You know that infamous smell? It's actually just one piece of a totally brilliant survival strategy. It's a strategy that makes skunk cabbage a huge player in its ecosystem, long before most other plants have even thought about waking up for the spring.
So why go to all the trouble of generating heat? Well, it's a brilliant evolutionary trick, really. The plant creates this cozy, warm little chamber and then pumps out a scent that, kind of smells like rotting meat. And that's the key. It attracts its main pollinators, flies and beetles, at a time of year when it's still way too cold for most other insects to even be flying around.
It's not just about pollination, though. This plant is a true ecological architect. I mean, it provides the very first pollen of the season for honeybees. Its seeds, they feed birds like wood ducks and pheasants. And those thick, powerful root systems, they hold the fragile soil of wetlands together. Get this, it's even the first spring meal for black bears coming out of hibernation. It actually acts as a natural laxative to get their whole system going again. How cool is that?
Okay, so with a plant this fascinating, you can see why identification is everything. And I'm not just talking about for people who might be foraging, I mean for anyone who really wants to understand what's going on the forest floor. Because, and this is a big one, skunk cabbage has a toxic look-alike, and getting them mixed up can be seriously dangerous.
So this really is the crucial question, right? When you're out there and you see those huge green leaves covering a wetland in late spring, how can you be 100% certain what you're actually looking at?
Okay, here they are side by side. On the left, you've got our skunk cabbage. On the right, its toxic twin, false hellebore. Now you can see how, to an untrained eye, those big green leaves in a swampy area might cause some confusion. But thankfully, there are some really clear, unmistakable ways to tell them apart. And this is your definitive guide right here. Pay attention to this. The #1 giveaway, it's the vein pattern. Skunk cabbage leaves had these netted, kind of web-like veins. False hellebore, on the other hand, has these deep, parallel ridges that almost look like a folded fan. That's a huge difference. Also, remember this. Skunk cabbage's weird little hooded flower, it's called a spathe, it always comes up before the leaves do, often right through the snow. False hellebore, its leaves come up first in a tight little spiral. And of course, the smell test. If you crush a leaf, only skunk cabbage is going to have that signature, skunky smell. So now that we know exactly what we're looking at, let's dig into its really deep relationship with people. This isn't just some random plant in the woods. For thousands of years, it was a cornerstone of ethnobotany here in North America. It was like a living pharmacy, and it was deeply revered for its powerful properties.
And this right here just gives you a tiny glimpse into the incredibly sophisticated knowledge held by indigenous nations. I mean, look at this. The Iroquois used its root for poultices and even as a powdered deodorant. The Delaware Nation used it as an anticonvulsant for epilepsy. The Winnebago and Dakota peoples used it as an expectorant for asthma. This was not just simple folklore, This was a carefully documented, deeply respected body of medicinal knowledge.
I love this quote from the botanist James Shull. It really puts the timeline of this plant into perspective. He says it may not improbably have occupied that very spot long years before Columbus set foot upon our shores. I mean, think about that. Individual skunk cabbage plants can be ancient, living for centuries, just like old trees. They're these silent, living witnesses to history, rooted in the exact same spot. And that traditional knowledge was so well respected that it crossed over into early American medicine. In 1820, skunk cabbage was officially added to the U.S. pharmacopoeia. For more than 60 years, these 19th century doctors called eclectic physicians, they were big on botanical remedies. They prescribed it for all sorts of things, from asthma to nervous disorders.
It was only later that it was replaced by other, newer medicines.
Okay, so this brings up a really critical question, doesn't it? If this plant was so widely used as both food and medicine for so long, why are we so focused on warning people about it now? Why do we consider it toxic? Well, the answer isn't in folklore. It's in its chemistry.
Yeah, the historical record is clear. People used it. But the modern warnings, they're just as clear. Don't. So what gives? The answer is fascinating. It's not that the plant is poisonous in the way we usually think. It's that it has a really powerful physical defense mechanism.
Get this, the cells of the skunk cabbage are packed with these microscopic needle-shaped crystals. They're called calcium oxalate crystals. So if you were to chew the raw plant, these tiny needles would literally embed themselves into the soft tissues of your mouth and throat, causing intense pain and burning. As a defense mechanism against being eaten, it's incredibly effective.
So let's just recap the key safety takeaways here. Number 1, the raw plant is toxic because of that physical irritant. Don't eat it. Number 2, to make it edible historically, it took a ton of processing, which is why it was really just an emergency food. And number 3, probably the most important for us today, the single biggest danger is still mixing it up with the highly toxic false hellebore.
Okay, so finally, let's pull back and look at this plant's place in our world today. Because it's a species that is so deeply tied to one specific kind of habitat, its future is completely intertwined with the health of our planet's wetlands.
When you see a big, thriving colony of skunk cabbage like this one, it's so much more than just a pretty sight. It's what scientists call a bioindicator. Its presence is a sign, a signal, that you're looking at a healthy, stable wetland ecosystem, the kind with good, clean groundwater. So when you see this, you're literally seeing a sign of a healthy habitat.
And as you can probably guess, that habitat is under threat. The two biggest dangers are, 1, the draining of wetlands for things like agriculture or new developments, and 2, the invasion of non-native species. I'm talking about aggressive plants like Japanese knotweed that can just completely take over a habitat, choking out entire colonies of an ancient native species like this. So when you think about it, protecting skunk cabbage, well, that really means protecting our wetlands. So I guess the essential message here is to approach the natural world with both admiration and a healthy dose of caution. You know, understanding plants like this one is an incredible skill to have, but getting the identification right isn't just a good idea, it's an absolute responsibility.
So let's recap. We've seen how this one single plant is a heat-producing marvel, an ecological linchpin, a living piece of history, and a vital sign of a healthy environment. It just makes you wonder, right? What other incredible stories like this are waiting to be discovered, right there, in our own backyards, in the world beneath our feet that we so often just walk right over?